This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our Center Court one-on-one interview with Joe Chen, the MBA program director and the associate professor who's this Wall Street expert at UC Davis Graduate School of Management. We're going to be talking about their full-time MBA program, which is a great option if you're near the Bay Area. You know, it's to me, UC Davis is a hidden secret, and I think that you know people tend not to always think of UC Davis as a really great option when it is, and it's just outside San Francisco. And one of the differentiating parts of the program, and we'll get into this with Joe, are these unusual industry immersions. So that's going to be a fascinating part of the discussion. So Joe, welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction, John.
And I will say this too, Joe got his PhD at Stanford, was an outstanding scholar there, and he knows UC Davis well because he's been there for over 13 years.
Oh gosh. Has it been that long? Oh yeah, see, it's
That's
such
what
a
your
great
LinkedIn profile tells me.
Yeah,
So
it time passes quickly when you're at Davis.
Indeed. Give us the basics of the MBA program.
So, in terms of the MBA program at UC Davis, let me start with just Davis in general. One of the things you kind of realize about UC Davis is the town of Davis itself is actually a college town. Which is very unusual because if you think about a lot of the institutions in the UC system, they tend to be in major cities. So it really is a community experience that you get if you go to an MBA program UC Davis. The full-time MBA program generally tends to be a fairly small program. So we are not one of the giant MBA programs that bring in hundreds of students per year. Our cohort is relatively small. We usually target about 50-ish students. And given that, we actually end up with an MBA program that is, people often describe it as intimate. Everyone really gets to know each other. Students get to know the faculty very well. I actually make it a point to make sure I have lunch with all my students at one point or another, particularly if I'm teaching, because that actually helps your teaching ratings a little bit. But just like all of us, we actually really like to interact with our students. So if you had to describe it, it is very much a intimate community that you get at UC Davis.
Yeah, that's great, and I think that's a special part of the program in and of itself, because as you point out, you not only get to know each and every classmate in your cohort, but you get to know the faculty incredibly well.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about one of the special things to me about the program and how it's evolved. And this is the immersions. And here's one of the things that I really love about your immersions, that you bring MBA students together with graduate and PhD students from other colleges and departments, which is a rare thing among business schools.
Yeah, and I was sort of shocked to find that other business schools don't do this. So just to give you a quick outline of what the immersions are, we call this industry immersions. There are 4 basic areas that we specialize in. It's food and agriculture, sustainable energy, biotechnology, and technology financing. I think the food and agriculture one is the one that's easiest to describe. And if you think about UC Davis and outside the business school, what are we known for? Well, it's the UC Davis Aggies. Historically, it's an agricultural school, but the area of food and agriculture has really expanded, not just in agriculture and other areas that Davis is known for, like viniculture, that's wine essentially, but because of where we are located, Davis itself is strong also in food sciences, as well as innovation in foods. There's an interesting thing going on in innovation in foods, particularly in things like essentially meat substitutes, right? We're talking things like lab-grown proteins, for instance. And the notion of the immersion is, let's take one of these industry specialties that we have on campus, bring not only MBA students into the classroom, but also other students, PhD students, in other departments, faculty members in other departments, executives in nearby areas into the classroom and talk about topics going on in the industry. So in food and agriculture immersion, you often get students talking about, okay, well, we have these lab-grown meats coming onto the market. How does one take these ideas from the sciences into business? And it's essentially a seminar format where we bring the entire community together at Davis to discuss these industries. It's grown so much so that the food and agriculture immersion experience actually goes throughout the whole year now. So rather than just in the classroom, we actually do a field trip where we take students into the field so they can actually see. It's one thing to think about an industry in the classroom. It's another thing to actually go to the field and experience what the executives are doing. So we can talk a lot about sustainable agriculture or sustainable practices. Another thing to actually see it for real. And then we follow it up with a pro seminar where you continue to talk about these issues. And in the pro seminar, rather than just bringing executives into the classroom and talking about the issues that they have, we actually engage the students to come up with their own ideas and start discussing these topics further. And that's food and agriculture, sort of a natural one for us. But we also have strengths in sustainable energy, which links a lot with energy and transportation. We actually have two centers at Davis. There's an energy center and a transportation center that does that has engineers doing research in those areas. So we're talking things like solar energy, electric cars, all sorts of ideas that are flowing in. And then the MBA students, again, can engage with these researchers to, find out, okay, well, how does one, take ideas to business? So, we're very excited with the immersions. I think it's, I would have thought other business schools would do this as well. It seems like a pretty interesting idea. Take whatever strengths that your campus has and really build on it.
Right. And then let's cover your other two immersions as well. Mm-hmm. You mentioned biotech, right?
Yeah, there's two others. So biotechnology and something we've been calling technology finance. Biotechnology actually makes sense for us because UC Davis has a strong health system. If you actually look at most of the other UCs, UC Davis is unique in that we actually have a medical school attached to us. And the biotechnology immersion is an effort to link the researchers that we have in the biotech as well as the medical area and connect them to our MBA students. In fact, the biotechnology area in UC Davis has been very active over the last 2 years with management of COVID. The UC Davis actually developed its own set of COVID testing. And we actually got to the point where we were one of the earlier campuses to test everyone, not just students, but we tested the entire campus. And we went beyond that, and because we are a college town, we started testing everyone in the community. So, anyone who lives in the city of Davis is offered free COVID testing by the campus. So we have this very active biotechnology center at UC Davis, and we're getting our students to engage with the activities there. So we brought in people who were part of this. We call this getting Davis ready, and we brought in experts in biotech, particularly with the COVID. And had them come to the classroom to talk about, okay, how did you manage this crisis? The other area is something a little bit different. It's called technology finance. It is a particular area. This is the one where we leverage our geographic nearness to the Bay Area. The Bay Area known for its innovation, particularly in the technology area. And one of the things that we realized is that when you talk about growing a technological company, and if you think about what a CFO does in the finance role in a technology company, is a very niche role. And as a CFO, you have to know a lot more than just finance. You have to know all about marketing. You have to know about management of people, and you have to have strategic vision. So a CFO of a startup company or a growing company have to wear multiple hats. So the idea with the technology finance is, well, let's bring in people who is not necessarily at the startup stage, but usually it is a growing stage. So if you're going up the post-startup, you start to look for things like venture capital funding. So that area company, we have a particular expertise in-house where we have researchers in our department that does a lot of work in venture capital, for instance. And we bring them together with CFOs of growing companies, and bring them to the classroom, and like with the other areas, talk about what their job is like, what are the problems that they deal with, and just really focus on application of management learnings to practical problems.
Yeah, what I love about all this is how you're leveraging the best assets of UC Davis broadly, as well as the best assets geographically.
Yeah.
And it should be said that you're very near Napa and Sonoma, the great wine growing areas. And UC Davis is very well known for actually turning out people who make wine as well. So I'm sure that there are, in the agricultural immersion, opportunities going forward to get a sense of the wine industry and the business of making wine and selling it at the school.
Absolutely. We have a lot of connections with alumni who's gone into the wine industry. We actually even have our own wine executive ed program where we teach business concepts to current executives in the wine industry. So we're very well connected to the wine industry. So always an advantage. And in fact, we recently got a license to start selling our own wine. So eventually
Really?
we'll start UC Davis wines being sold at our gift stores.
Oh, now I know I've had your olive oil and your balsamic vinegar.
Yeah, that's
So
right. We do that too. We're not just wine. We also do other agricultural items, but we're mostly wine.
Now, Joe, if you're a full-time MBA student, how many immersions can you take? Do you just take one, or you can take all four?
So normally students tend to focus on one. We have had students that are interested in taking multiple. So currently you can do one in the first year and take another one in the second year.
Right.
It is feasible to do all four, but I would not recommend that because we do want you to have, develop, skills in other functional areas as well. I kind of think of it as the immersions, also the dessert, but you got to eat your broccoli too. So we do want you in the classroom developing skills.
Absolutely. Now, are there concentrations in the MBA program?
Then we don't actually do much in terms of concentration. So we do have recommendations if you want to concentrate on it. We tend to focus things more. We do provide guidance. So if you tell me that you want to do something that's more, more of a finance person, we give you a set of curriculum that we recommend that you take. But a student is not required to concentrate. If anything, I do encourage my students to have a much broader view of general management. And in fact, just as my own personal experience, I ended up getting a PhD in finance because I wanted to concentrate in finance and not want to take in any other classes, things like negotiations and management, for instance. In hindsight, that was one of my biggest regrets. Because even if you become a finance expert throughout your career, you need to be able to negotiate. You need to be able to manage people. You need to be able to work in teams. So there's a lot of additional skill sets that you need to have. So you don't want to over concentrate. So when students ask me, hey, what are the classes that you should take if I want to be a finance concentration major, I always encourage them, don't forget to take courses like negotiations, courses like team leadership, because if you think about the long term, you're going to need all of it. So sort of a bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah, we do have recommendation for concentrations, but we don't emphasize it nearly as much as other institutions might.
Right. And what does your typical class profile look like in terms of gender splits, what's required to get into the program, international students, that kind of thing?
So it really depends. So when I look at it, I think it's a gender spread, I think it's almost 50-50. We do tend to attract some international students. We target 50-50-ish in terms of international and domestic. We do tend to attract a lot of students coming from Asia just because here in California, I think every California school tends to attract a lot of international students coming from India and China. Interestingly, we've also been focusing a lot on Latin America. So I've got students currently in the classroom from Brazil, from Costa Rica. So yeah, it does tend to be all over the place. But being in California, I think there is a bit of a international focus, looking west. But we do try to attract students from everywhere. It's a pretty diverse, and in fact, it's sort of a universal California thing. We really want our cohort to be diverse in many dimensions.
Right. Now, Joe, one of my favorite questions to ask is when I visit a campus to go out with students and have a drink and over a beer, ask them, what are the 3 things about the program that you're going to really miss? Things that really resonated with you that made a difference to you. If I were to ask your alums that question, what would they say? What are the 3 big things?
So the first one is something I already mentioned. It's the being a intimate community.
Yes.
So students often come back, with especially alumni, wanting to engage. In fact, one of the things that I found is that we have a really hard time making our alumni go away and go to other states to get their jobs. They really want to stay in the area.
Yes.
On the plus side, that creates a great alumni network because many of them have not left. Particularly for my students in finance, I keep telling them, look, you got to go back, go to the East Coast, go to Wall Street, get jobs there. People really want to stay close to Davis because they really do get attached. So the one is the intimate experience. I think another experience that they do mention is so the connection to the industry. So the industry immersions is a big draw. A lot of people actually start off, myself included, look at some of these immersions and go, oh, I never had much interest in this area, but then they do find that it's interesting. So food and agriculture, when I arrived at Davis, as a finance person, I never thought it was interesting until I sat into these areas and saw, oh, there is so many fascinating things going on in food and agriculture, not just in terms of wine and agriculture, but also, these, synthetic meats, right? You see these, Beyond Burgers everywhere now and Impossible Meats left and right. So you can even get like what was it? It's you could get a fried chicken made of vegetables now. So that's the latest thing. So we're intimately connected with the efforts going on there. So I never thought that was that was even possible. So that's 2. And I think the third thing that we often hear. So the third thing that we hear, this is something we're trying to address more and more of. People often come and tell us that they wish they had taken more classes. So they've taken many classes, while they're doing the MBA. They graduate and they realize afterwards that, oh, maybe I should have developed more skills in data analytics, or maybe I should have taken more classes in computer programming, or the other way, maybe I should take in that negotiations class.
Mm.
So something that our dean is working on is this concept of lifelong learning, where we want to actually, well, a couple of things. One, we always invite our alumni to attend our classes if there is a seat available. Now, if there's an empty seat, it's always available to our alumni. And we're trying to encourage that even more, where we actually want to start going back to our alumni and asking them, okay, well, post-graduation, what courses did you miss that you would like to have access to? And I think as we go forward and as the business education evolves, it's not going to be a one-stop experience anymore. That even after you graduate, you need to keep learning. And as a school, we want to be available for that. So it's the new initiative that is still a work in progress. The only thing we do right now is invite alumni to be part of the community still, but we want to start reaching out to the alumni and help them keep learning.
Yeah, that's a great thing. And you're right. I mean, everything is perishable today. Your learning is perishable. So you need to be updated. A lot of changes are going to occur in the near future with artificial intelligence, machine learning. Obviously, data and business analytics has become a very big area in the last 5 years, and that's not going away. That's only going to increase, right?
No, and you can't forecast what skills you're going to need 5 years after graduation. So, so we want to be able to sort of make sure that our alumni are able to keep up with the changes.
How does UC Davis teach leadership skills?
We do a lot. Well, I'm not a management faculty, and I don't do leadership. I do a lot of finance work. But we have this program called the Collaborative Leadership Program. And in terms of the non-quantitative skills, areas like leadership, it's something that our management faculty places a huge emphasis on. Collaboration and leadership is we plastered that with that all over the curriculum. We really make it very important that we produce managers that can lead in any environment. So aside from just simple coursework, we put people into different projects and we force people to work in teams of people they don't know each other. One of the graduation requirements is a capstone project course. And in this capstone project course, it is basically a consulting project class. Students are forced to work with students that they don't necessarily know or have worked with together. And our idea is that if you take any MBA student that graduates, we should be able to put them in any team, give them a task, and they should be able to self-coordinate and manage. So we do emphasize it, and the experience ends with a bit of a trial by fire and see if they do well in this consulting project or not. Generally, students do well. They don't need to need any us to intervene and make sure the team functions. But we emphasize it throughout the curriculum. We really need students to become leaders and be able to function in teams.
Yeah, great. That's great. Now, obviously, Joe, we're going through an unprecedented period. The pandemic is part of that. The rapid acceleration of the use of technology to deliver learning is part of that. Our society is incredibly polarized, and it seems that people are having more difficulty getting along with each other. I wonder how all of these trends are going to inform the evolution of the MBA program at UC Davis in the years to come.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to focus what's going to happen, but my prediction is that what the pandemic did is it didn't change things. I think it just accelerated things. So uses of technology in the classroom, I think that's something that's been a long time coming. I think in terms of using what we're doing right now, Zoom, for instance, Zoom actually isn't a new technology that we invented at the pandemic. It's been around. We've always had video conferencing forever. We just never really had to figure out how to do it, and things just sort of accelerated for us. One of the very, well, I won't say necessarily fortunate, but we got lucky in the pandemic. And prior to 2020, we just launched our online MBA program. Our online MBA program is not a just simply watching video type program, but it's actually combination of videos as well as Zoom-based meetings. So when the pandemic hit, we were fortunate in that we actually already had in-house expertise on how do you teach in this platform. So we was, when we had to switch to remote teaching, from our point of view, it was just, we've already been trained. We've been kind of, we were fortunate enough to know what to anticipate. So we were able to pivot quite rapidly into Zoom-based teaching because we were kind of doing it already with the online MBA program. And some of the funny things that we learned in this pivot is there are disadvantages to being on Zoom, in terms of trying to get students engaged, but also advantages as well. So in terms of geography, we had this one class where, if you recall, initially during the pandemic, students couldn't quite come to the classroom yet because they had to lock down wherever they were. There was this one class that I was monitoring where we actually had students in the Zoom room sitting in Brazil and India at the same time. And obviously, within California. So it's really increased the geographical reach a little bit. I mean, we're still constrained by, time. So, when it's evenings in California, people in Europe are asleep. But you can still reach people in India and Brazil at the same time. We actually have a student who is full-time living in Indonesia, taking these online MBA classes. We are able to now have faculty members who are executives in Texas teaching our classes using remote technology. And I was actually just recently able to engage a retired faculty member and have him continue teaching while he's retired in Hawaii. So you look at his backgroround and you go, you know what? That's not a virtual background. That's an actual palm tree back there. So I think, yes, the Zoom is not necessarily what we wanted, but it's something that we should embrace because it gives us a lot more flexibility. So I can use faculty members who's super experienced. He's retired, but he could still engage the students. I can have the executive in Texas who can't necessarily come to Davis, but if he's he can engage our students right from there as well. So so that's a big change in terms of just use of technology in the classroom. Related to that is one thing that Davis has not focused on is just developing the traditional full-time MBA program. So that's still a flagship product, but we've been doing a lot of effort developing our part-time program and the online MBA program. These are the working professional programs. Right. And there's a lot of linkages between our full-time program and our working professional programs. Looking down in the future, we might find that the lines between the full-time and the part-time working professionals start to get blurred a little bit more. I don't know exactly what it's going to end up looking like. It might end up looking like much more of a stackable MBA type framework that's going to be coming up, where you start off being a full-time MBA student, but then you transition into being a working professional MBA student. You might even decide to take a pause from your MBA program and start with your career and then finish off your MBA. So I don't know exactly where we're going to land. But what we learned with the experience over the pandemic and the development of the online MBA program is that we need to be flexible, and students want to be flexible. So we need to be able to offer a variety of different pathways to get to your MBA. One of the really interesting things with our working professional MBA program is that as far as the technical requirements and the degree are concerned, they all have to satisfy the same degree requirement. So we actually have a single document that says in order to get to be qualified for an MBA, you have to satisfy these courses and curriculum. And even if you do a working professional MBA program, you have to satisfy the same set of MBA programs. We only have one degree to give out. We have to offer many different paths, one of which is a traditional full-time path, but there's also the part-time path, as well as now the online MBA path. And I can imagine in the future, there's going to be different paths to MBA. So we'll see.
Yeah, some of these natural boundaries would be coming down. There'll be more free flow among the different programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it's going to go. Yeah, I think some of the other institutions that they will always have, Harvard will always have the traditional full-time MBA program for sure. I think for us, I think it's good. It's one of our many options of getting an MBA.
Right. Now, Joe, if someone is interested in following up and learning more about the program, what should they do? What's your advice to them?
If anybody wants to follow with my program, with the UC Davis program, absolutely reach out to me personally, reach out to anyone in our staff. I love to chat, so I'm always available to kind of chat. Probably so much so that I kind of don't do enough of my other work that I should be doing. But always available to chat and procrastinate that way.
So you may regret this invitation for every applicant to contact you and ask about the program. I mean, the other way to learn is you'll put people in contact with current students or alums.
We do that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
In fact, we have a set of students that we call the ambassadors that we make available to talk to. But oftentimes I just chat with people directly.
All right. Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for the time.
All right. We've been speaking with Joe Chen, the academic director of the MBA program at UC Davis Graduate School of Management. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.